From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight, Israel's bombing of Gaza entered its second month on Tuesday. The Palestinian death toll reached a grim milestone with 13,977 people dead. Muslim News' tally of the total death toll includes 2,300 Palestinians under the rubble of bombed-out buildings with no hope of survival. An Israeli military report claims 1,500 Palestinians who invaded Israel were killed. That includes 155 Palestinians killed by the Israeli military and illegal Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank. The dead include 4,104 children, 2,641 women, and 596 elderly individuals. On average, a Palestinian child was killed every 10 minutes in Gaza in the past month, in addition to thousands wounded. Israeli attacks on Gaza have killed more civilians than the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has been going on for 620 days. The war between Russia and Ukraine has claimed over 9,000 civilian lives since it began on February 24, 2022. As the Israel-Palestine conflict enters the second month, calls for Israel to scale back its bombardment are growing. Israeli tanks are operating inside Gaza, aiming to invade Gaza City, home to its main hospital and an estimated 400,000 people. 80 UN staff members have lost their lives while providing essential services amid the crisis, and 65 UN facilities have been damaged. More than 220,000 homes are damaged, displacing 1.6 million people. Gaza's health sector has crumbled under the weight of relentless attacks, with 175 medical staff killed and 154 injured. 16 hospitals are now out of service and 32 healthcare centers have ceased operations. A total of 58 health centers have been damaged and 31 ambulances hit. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel says the U.S. has been clear with Israel that Palestinian civilians need to be protected. As for U.S. support of Israel's actions, Patel repeated the standard line that Israel has a right to defend itself. He, however, did not mention if Palestinians have a right to defend themselves against the Israeli occupation. U.S. media is allowing Israeli military commanders to review footage received from embedded reporters with the Israeli military. Fareed Zakaria, host of CNN's Fareed Zakaria GPS, said journalists embedded with the Israeli military are closely monitored and not allowed to move unaccompanied. They must submit their materials for the military review before publication. Israel does not allow foreign journalists into Gaza unless they are embedded with the Israeli military. CNN and other media outlets have agreed to these terms to provide a limited window into Israel's operations in Gaza. Responding to Zakaria's admission, U.S. journalist Dan Cohen asserted that CNN is explicitly acting as a propaganda mouthpiece for the genocidal Zionist regime. American photojournalist Zach Roberts said on social media, "What CNN is doing here is creating ad B-roll for the IDF." Imam Omar Soleiman, founder and president of the Texas-based Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research, says Israel is killing journalists who expose their crimes and bribing journalists who cover for it. During the 8-year U.S.-led invasion of Iraq, embedded journalists were used by American officials to control the public narrative. A recent poll by the Arab American Institute reveals a significant decline in Arab American support for President Joe Biden, largely attributed to his stance on Israel's actions in Gaza. Biden's approval among Arab Americans dropped from 74% in 2020 to 29% in 2023, a 45 percentage point decrease. Results also found that if the 2024 presidential election were held today, only 17% of Arab Americans would vote for Biden, down 42% from 2020. The decline in support for Biden has implications for the Democratic Party. According to the poll, 32% of Arab Americans now identify as Republicans compared to 23% as Democrats, marking a 17% drop from April. It's a significant change in political alignment within the Arab American community. Traditionally, 1/3 of Arab Americans identified as Republicans, 1/3 as Democrats, and 1/3 as independents. Experts say Biden's failure to address the latest Israel-Palestine situation adequately is likely reflected in these numbers. About 3.7 million Arab Americans live in the U.S. Their voting preferences can have a significant impact, particularly in swing states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. The poll's findings may pose challenges for both the Democratic and Republican parties, given the complex views and concerns of Arab and Muslim American voters. The Israeli army continues to clear North Gaza of Palestinians. Avichai Adrai, the Army's Arabic-speaking spokesman, said civilians would be allowed to cross the Salahuddin Highway for 4 hours in the morning to reach southern Gaza. The Israeli army warned 1.1 million people living in the north of Gaza to evacuate and move south as its forces have expanded their operations. Meanwhile, Gaza's Ministry of Health warns Palestinians not to use the corridor announced by Israel to the south of the region. Ashraf al-Qudra, spokesman for the ministry, described it as a corridor of death. Israeli army targets Al-Rantisi hospital. Details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Israeli attacks on Gaza continued on Monday after it targeted 3 adjacent hospitals in Gaza City. That included an eye hospital, a psychiatric hospital, and Al-Rantisi Children's Hospital. This bombing left 8 Palestinians dead and 125 others injured. Ashraf al-Qudra, Gaza's health ministry spokesman, says the Israeli army has killed over 10,000 people and injured more than 25,000 others. The death toll includes more than 4,000 children and over 2,000 women. Al-Qudra also says the ministry has received reports of approximately 2,300 people missing under the rubble, including around 1,300 children. Besides the large number of casualties and massive displacements, basic supplies are running low for Gaza's 2.3 million residents due to the Israeli siege. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concern over clear violations of international law in Gaza. He said the United Nations and its partners are launching a $1.2 billion humanitarian appeal to help 2.7 million Palestinians. Guterres described the situation in the besieged and bombarded Palestinian enclave as more than a humanitarian crisis. He emphasized the protection of the civilian population must come first and said Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. The UN chief added that in view of the looming catastrophe, a humanitarian ceasefire is becoming more urgent by the hour. Guterres stressed that the international community has an immediate and fundamental responsibility to end the inhumane collective suffering and expand humanitarian aid to Gaza. Germany has expressed concern over mounting anti-Muslim racism in the country since the start of the latest violence in the Israel-Palestine conflict on October 7th. Government spokesman Stefan Hebestreit said any attacks on Muslims in Germany for religious or other reasons are absolutely unacceptable. The Berlin-based Alliance Against Islamophobia and Anti-Muslim Hate warned last week of growing anti-Muslim racism amid the escalating conflict in Gaza. Rima Hanano, head of the non-governmental organization, said there is an intensification of anti-Muslim racism in Germany. She said all people must be protected from racist, anti-Semitic, and other inhumane violence and threats. Claim has documented 53 cases of anti-Muslim threats, violence, and discrimination in the last 2.5 weeks, including 10 attacks on mosques. She said there likely are numerous unreported anti-Muslim incidents that have not been recorded, such as anti-Muslim hate speech on social networks. Claim called for far-reaching measures to combat anti-Muslim racism. In heated testimony during a civil fraud trial in New York, former President Donald Trump denied that his company provided accurate property valuations. He claimed his company undervalued his Mar-a-Lago estate and Doral golf course in Florida while overvaluing his Trump Tower apartment, among other assets. Trump downplayed the significance of these valuations, which state lawyers argued were inflated to secure better financing terms. Judge Arthur Engoron ruled the estimates fraudulent and warned Trump to control his remarks in court. New York State lawyers argued the estimates misled lenders and insurers, earning Trump $100 million and exaggerating his wealth by $2 billion. Trump called the trial a witch hunt and accused legal authorities of targeting his businesses due to political bias. The civil fraud case, unlike the criminal cases Trump faces, does not pose a prison threat but could harm his image. New York Attorney General Letitia James seeks $250 million in fines and business restrictions on Trump and his sons Eric and Donald Jr. Evidence presented in the trial revealed attempts to manipulate property valuations by company officials, including Trump's sons. Former lawyer Michael Cohen testified that Trump instructed him to manipulate financial statements to inflate his net worth. Trump has been fined for violating a gag order and may face legal challenges that could affect his 2024 presidential campaign. Yet, opinion polls show Trump maintains a strong lead for the Republican Party's presidential nomination. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.